Hello, and welcome to another episode of eBay Scavengers. This is episode number 116 on ebayscavengers.com, and we are talking about what's going on in our store this week.
What's going on in our store?
What is going on in our store?
So this week was just a good, solid, average week. It's for us, we gross about $2,000 or so.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, we had a couple of slow days. We didn't have as many big sales as we normally have, but we did have some.
There was one day where not one thing sold, and it was about 10:30 at night, and we were like, will this be the day where not one single thing sells?
Right, because we haven't remembered a day where we haven't sold at least one thing, and then about 11 o'clock we sold about 3 things, 11 at nighttime.
Yeah, it was like right by the end of the night, so that was good. But we weren't worried because we know it'll come back.
And because we like to do our numbers, when we look at it, we did have some really good sales. We always like the big numbers. So we sold like this purse for $300.
So this is a funny story because we went to one of our thrift stores in our little town this one day, and there was just this big pile of, purses and duffel bags and just like,
yeah,
it looked junky.
I think that they had found maybe a box of this stuff that had been in the back room, and they just had put it out. So we went through it, and we probably picked up, like 30 of these purses and bags.
I mean, this is one of those days where you're like, they just put this out, and I was finding bag after bag after bag. And this is the place where you buy stuff in bulk. This purse was in that bag. It's all leather purse. It was actually like a mini backpack purse. And I didn't think it was that big a deal until I looked it up when I got home.
Right, it was some name brand.
It was this name brand.
The Bridge.
It's called The Bridge. Now, if you go and look at completed listings, which I know you're going to do right now, these purses regularly sell for easily $300.
Right.
They're Italian leather. I think they're vintage from the 70s.
But I think that's a good example of, when we're out there, we can tell when something's quality.
Right.
It's like well made, it's made out of good
leather.
It's material. Yeah. So we didn't think it'd sell for $300, but it when we're basically paying a quarter for things, all we're really looking for is $30 or $40 on the item, which is crazy profit. So, but every once in a while you'll
stumble across these things where you're like, I know this is nice. It could be worth $50, so that's a score. But then you come home and look it up and you're like, wow.
Yeah, and then we've been selling some more artwork for a couple $100.
That's been good.
But this week has mainly been items selling for $20 to $40.
The bread and butter.
And that's what we always talk about. Like
hats.
Hats. I mean, everyone loves to talk about the big sales,
right.
Everyone loves to talk about that, the jackpots. But really, if you're going to run a full-time business and making a living on it, I don't know, from our experience, that business is built on $20 to $40 items.
Yeah, and we saw that steadily all week. We sold a bunch of hats. Hats always sell for us. Several jackets, a sweater, shoes, a pair of overalls. The real basic stuff. I mean, we like that stuff because, we can find it easily and for cheap. But then what's awesome is peppered throughout the week are some big sales. So that makes us feel better about, okay.
And that's because, over time, we've just been really trying to teach ourselves to pass over the junkier stuff.
Yeah.
And, that isn't easy because when you're out there scavenging and stuff is a quarter, it's free, it's really cheap, you just want to grab everything, and we're really trying to teach ourselves to stay away from the low dollar items. And, slowly, I'd say 20% of our store is now stuff that's over $100.
Yeah.
And
something I did actually this week was, I have a couple high dollar items that are actually in our house just because they're large or
big lamps.
Lamps. And there's a couple just random pieces of artwork that are just in our house. And, I kind of went through and started bringing some prices down because they have been, now I don't normally do that, but they have been sitting for a while. So I'm like, I want to get this on someone's radar, hopefully.
And that's interesting because people talk about that, and we talk about it too, is that, the way we do things is we list things and we forget it.
Right.
But everything has an exception. And that being said, sometimes we put crazy prices, $1,200 on something. I mean, if it's a beautiful piece of artwork or a really fancy lamp, I mean, we'll try to make the big money.
Well, it's like that purse. I was like, okay, these sell for this much, so I don't need to get $300. So I put $299 make offer. Someone wanted it. They didn't make an offer. But, if in, a year that hadn't sold, I might reconsider, like, okay, I got to bring this down. That's just how we work.
But because we list so much, you can take these chances, do these experiments, and give it yourself time for things to sell, to find the right buyer.
Right.
Especially if it has either a brand name or it's some style or it's, an item that's collectible. It's definitely a learning experience.
One thing we sold today that's a good example is I was on a listing tear this week, which was good. Actually, it was only for half the week because we were very distracted with the other house and doing gardening and stuff like that because it's nice out. But I sat down for 2 days in a row and just listed. And actually what's cool is when you get a folder and you're like, all of these are high dollar items. So that's nice to have just a bunch of those. But I had this tiki mug, and it wasn't a traditional tiki mug that you think of, when you think tiki, it looks, Polynesian or something. It was actually like a Japanese style tiki mug from the Century Plaza Hotel in Los Angeles, which opened in the mid-'60s.
It's very Mad Men,
It was very Mad Men. It's this like little Japanese guy, and it's obviously for like a tropical drink.
And, it's funny, we bought it maybe 5 months ago or something.
Yeah, and it was a couple bucks. And I searched and searched for anything that looked similar, like a little, Japanese tiki guy, and I could not find a single thing. And I thought, you know what? People collect stuff from the Century Plaza Hotel, like there's postcards and stuff from when it opened. Because actually the architect who did the Century Plaza Hotel was the architect for the World Trade Center. So
and this is interesting. Like, we didn't know any of this stuff until a couple days ago.
Looked it up.
And that's kind of the fun of selling one-of-a-kind items, because you get these items and you do the research, and it's kind of fun. You learn about history and design and architecture.
Yeah. So I decided, since I could not find anything like this, I thought, I'm going to put this up for $120 make offer. Because it's cool looking. I mean, Jay loved it the second he saw it. And the very next day, someone wrote me a message and said, that was this morning, actually.
And bought it.
I mean, they said, please make sure this is pristine. I said, it is. And they bought it for full price.
Yep.
Some guy in Oregon.
And that is an example where it's mentioned to me, if we had done auctions, is that one of those things where we'd put it up and it'd sell for $500?
Right.
But honestly, the way we do it, if you do its research, we think we had a strong price on it. We're happy with that price, so...
And, we could have put it on auction and it sold for $25.
Right.
So I put the price I wanted for it.
Right.
And I got it the next day, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah. So, that's very exciting.
Yeah, that was a cool sale.
I think I've seen it on the blog this couple weeks, is people talking about like being overwhelmed by all the stuff in their house that they don't have up yet. And we go through that too, or have been through that. And that's why we've just taught ourselves we're really buying less stuff. Everything we buy these days is much more quality.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
come on. Like, back in the old days, we would come home with 6 bags full of stuff.
We pass things over for sure now. Yeah, I mean, I'll see something and I'll be like, it's a Woolrich jacket. But then you're like, oh, I got to look at it closer because, it's too bad to sell.
Right.
It's a waste of time.
So I think that really is helping us to be more productive, because when you're having to go through junky items, it's really a drag on productivity, Like,
sure,
it's not fun to take pictures of. It's not fun to list. And I don't know, too, I sense it in other people. There's this idea of like, once you scavenge it, it's almost like you have an obligation to sell it. And we get that too.
I feel that.
Although I'm getting better about, if I look at something, I'm like, yeah, this was not a good choice. I don't really mind giving it back up these days.
Well, you have been doing shirts like crazy. I do not know how many shirts we had. We had
almost 300, I'd say.
So many shirts. And the good thing was, I'll steam them, but if I see too many marks on it, I'll put it in the donate pile. And then you have the second chance of looking it over when you're photographing it. And we got rid of a bunch.
Right.
Because it's just not worth it. You have a nice polo shirt. It's got a stain right in the front.
But honestly, like, this is kind of an experiment for us. We haven't really ever sold a lot of men's kind of fancy shirts. So this will be... We'll get them all up and we'll see if they sell. But yeah. I don't want to buy any more of them right now because it's just... You're
sick of them. Shirts and pants and skirts. Yeah. Oh, I'm not buying any more.
Plus, it's just like we want to find the things that we have fun with. I didn't really have a lot of fun with taking pictures of men's shirts.
Yeah, it's just too much.
I guess my point is, it's good to know what you enjoy it's working with and knowing its numbers and all that stuff. And the other thing that I think is interesting, is looking at what we sold. It's this week. I'm always amazed that we have no control over our sales. I mean, people will, email us, how do I sell more? I mean, I'm like, I have no idea. Like the only control we have over is how much we list, how well we take pictures of things and present things, and then the actual items that we scavenge, making sure, as we just talked about, we're getting quality. I mean, that's the only control we have, but we have no other control on getting people to buy. But I am amazed over the past 3 years. Our monthly income has been reasonably consistent. I mean, we've always hit a minimum that we need. Yeah, and we always get more than we need.
It is really amazing. And it's funny on those days where nothing's selling. It reminds you how much, how little control you have.
Totally helpless. Like, what do I do? Like, did I turn eBay? Like, did I hit something on the website to turn it off?
Thought that day, I wonder if something's wrong with our store. Like, I get worried. Like, I got to check our store. Not that I'm not always checking our store anyway. But what's amazing is when you have like today, we sold a crap load of stuff. I don't know what's going on, whatever. It's, we had a lot of sales.
A crap load.
Yeah,
I mean,
so that's amazing. You're like, it's amazing that someone's looking for something. They find ours and they buy it every single day.
Yep.
Enough for us to make a living. But it's amazing.
It's like we had just recently talked about. It is amazing that eBay, or really any online site, you can be at home and sell to the entire planet.
The entire world.
And it's amazing.
It's
amazing.
And people, like we say on the eBay forums, they're very negative about eBay. They think eBay's out to get them. All this stuff.
Shipping program.
Global shipping. Yeah. But for pennies to list, you can sell something to someone almost anywhere in the world. Right. I just think that is awesome. Yeah. So it's amazing to me.
Well, let's answer some of the questions that were sent in. Every Thursday we do a question answer on the blog, but we're always happy to take these questions as well.
So someone named Sylvana asks, I sold an item 2 days ago and sent an invoice to the buyer twice, but I have not received the payment. How long do you wait until you email the buyer and eventually cancel the purchase? Okay, what I do is I will send an invoice and send a note, and I give them 2 days because that's how long you have until you can do an unpaid item case. So honestly, down to the minute, I will know when I can do the unpaid item case, and I do that. And our method now is like a triple threat now. So we do the unpaid item case. We request the user's information, and I can tell you how to do that in a second. So basically, you're requesting their phone number. And then we send them a message that Jay wrote up that's really good, which says, we're trying to do one last appeal to you. We accepted your offer on this item and now you have to pay. We see you're not new to eBay, if they're not new. And this is the process. Please respect the process.
We try to appeal to their pride, so...
It did work this week.
Yeah, so it works about maybe 40% of the time it works.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so that's how we deal with it. And, I give people 2 days, and that's it. I mean, that's long enough.
And that being said, all we ever really want is communication. If somebody says, I'm going to get paid in a week, I'll pay then.
Right.
We're like, no problem.
I just want communication.
Yeah.
But they don't say anything. And so what happened this week was a guy gave us an offer on a pair of boots. We said yes. We never heard from him. We did all the stuff I just mentioned. And today he wrote to me and was like, I found another pair that was a better price, so sorry, I'm not going to pay for these. And we didn't say anything because I was basically just going to do an unpaid item. And then he came back and said, I actually feel really bad because, you did take my offer and, so I will actually pay for them. I just have to wait till next week. So I was like, great, okay.
Yep, it's all good. So, I mean, bottom line is if someone hasn't paid in 2 days and they haven't said anything to you, they probably aren't going to pay unless you start that
process.
It's process.
Yeah, start the process.
Again, about 40% of the time when people start getting hit with those unpaid item cases, some people, they'll end up paying, but not always. It's Crystal writes, could you elaborate on housewares? You mention them fairly often, but I'm not sure what kind of items you're talking about. So when we say housewares, we just mean, so when you go to like an estate sale or even like thrift stores, very often an older person has passed away and all of their housewares have been put out on shelves to be sold. So we're talking about like 1950s, 1960s housewares, like mid-century.
So she doesn't understand what housewares are. Okay. So when I mention housewares, I mean like pots and pans, stuff you would use in the kitchen, vases, candlestick holders, pictures, just things you might use around the house. It's not artwork, it's not clothing.
But I mean, I guess what I'm talking about though is not just, it's a certain style that we're buying of housewares.
Yeah, we buy vintage and mid-century.
Right.
You could buy modern housewares and sell those, but we don't sell those.
Right. And so that's what sells. It's for us because there are people out there that they're trying to get a certain style in their kitchen, Right,
like in my kitchen.
A bread box,
Right, a bread box, things like that. I would even rephrase it as like kitchenware or bakingware, things like that. Like in my kitchen, I only use a certain kind of pot. It's a stainless steel aluminum clad by Farberware, and it's vintage. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. We also have Revereware. That's stuff that I use personally, and because I love it so much, I look for it and I sell it to people. So, that's just something that I enjoy buying and selling.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's the stuff that we really love. We love finding stuff that's like collectible and stylish, but we love it when it's practical. Because we don't like to think that we're just selling stuff that clutters up people's homes.
Tchotchke.
We like the idea that we're selling stuff that has design and style to it, that's beautiful to check out, but that people are actually incorporating it into their life. Because that's what we do. I mean, we have cool kind of stylish things, but we actually
want
to
use it. Yeah, exactly. So Cash from Closets asks, when you sell brand new clothes, new with tags, do you still provide all measurements in the listing? Number one, for us personally, it's very rare that we find or sell anything new with tags. That's just not what we look for. But if it is new with tags, absolutely, you should always provide measurements. It doesn't matter what the tag says. It depends on the brand. A small from Benetton is going to be different than a small from, Burberry.
And, and we don't find a lot of newer tags because, again, we're looking at more thrift store, estate sale stuff. So if we do find things new with tags, it's something that was bought in the 70s.
Yeah, probably.
And still has the tags on it that someone just threw in the closet. So it may say a large on it, but that's large from the 70s. So that's more like a medium these days just because people are bigger. Americans are bigger.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point because even if it's not, new with tags, but like say it's an old Wrangler jacket And like Jay said, it says large. Well, that's not really a large anymore. So if you're doing vintage, I mean, you really have to give measurements because a vintage size large is no longer.
If you sell clothes, you know what we're talking about. I mean, you can assume all that you want, that people have common sense, but why take that chance, you know?
Right.
People will complain because they'll say, it says large, but it doesn't fit me.
And eBay will side with them.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have the measurements.
We put its measurements in.
It takes longer. We know it takes longer. It is so much easier to list anything on eBay if you just say, it's a coffee pot, it's a sweater, and you take a couple photos. But what's going to save you from a return is all the measurements.
Yeah.
We even had someone return a pair of candlesticks because we didn't measure the inside width of where it holds the candle because, you know, they were like, I thought this was a regular taper, but it's a mini taper.
And we had to pay to ship it back and forth, and he's right because we didn't say that. And so
we'll never make that mistake again.
Yeah. So Eric was saying, you know, we did a podcast last week about how we handle people returning items. So he's asking us, do we pay to ship the item back and forth? And the answer is this, what we just said. Because we provide so many photos and all its measurements, 99% of its returns now, the buyer pays to ship back and forth because we haven't done anything wrong.
Right.
They're just choosing to return it, and we're glad to take it. So the buyer, though, has to pay. You know, on the rare occasion when we do have to pay the shipping back and forth, it's because, like that candlestick example, we failed to provide a piece of info that was important and we did something wrong.
Right.
You know?
Right. So I think Eric also asked this on the Q&A blog post too, because he probably wanted an answer faster. But yeah, so you don't have to, you know, if they do a hassle-free return, you know, there's a checkbox that says, do you want to refund the original shipping? Well, if it's not your fault, don't be out that money, you know?
Right.
There's no reason for that at all.
And that's another reason why we don't do free shipping, because even if it's not our fault and the person returns the item, they may pay to ship it back to us, but we'll lose out on shipping it to them. Even if it's not our fault, they just chose, you know, they thought the style of shoes wasn't what they didn't want. So I don't know. But don't start us on free shipping.
Oh yeah, that's a whole. Okay, Vintage Green Mama asks, I was wondering if you knew if it's okay to send priority regional A or B box to eBay Global Shipping. Also, what goes on behind the scenes at the Global Shipping program? Do they repackage your items? Yes, you can send any kind of priority mail box to eBay Global Shipping because it's in the U.S. So it doesn't matter what kind you need to pay for. You pay for anything. And then as far as repackaging, I do not know the answer to that. They claim that they do repackage some things, but one time I got a return from a guy in Japan, which is rare, and he just threw it back in the mailer that they sent and put a label over it. And I noticed that they hadn't repackaged it. They had just slapped a label on top of mine. So I don't know. That was just a small
Maybe they make a judgment call. If a seller has packed it appropriately, maybe they just pass it on. But if they feel like, you know, they shake it and it's making noise, they'll
Or if it's a bigger item, a breakable item, because I sent a big, it's a vintage ceramic ashtray that was 16 inches long. The thing was huge. It's a lot of cigarettes to smoke. And I don't know if they go in and make sure it's not broken, you know? I wonder. So that, I don't know. I would love to one day, like, go down to the Global Shipping Program warehouse and tour it. But...
So Ike Boy asks, he heard on the blog we had talked about bringing 2 big bags back from Amsterdam the last time we were over there because we had packed them with scavenged items. How did we get them back, and what was the cost to bring them back?
Okay, so we are notoriously cheap.
We're scavengers, come on!
We do not want to pay to ship big-ass bags back from Amsterdam.
Right.
And the beauty of KLM or whoever you're flying
International travel
is you get one big ass bag For free.
Each person can bring, on this one airline we had taken, could bring 75 pounds.
Was it 75 pounds? Yeah, it was something like that.
75 or 80 pounds. I think it was like in kilograms. But the point is this, because we're scavengers, we just need to know what the rules are.
Yeah.
Tell us what the rules are, and we will follow those rules. So actually, when we were at the airport about to fly home in Amsterdam, we had packed these 2 big duffel bags totally full. And when they weighed, one of them weighed a little bit too much. So we had to like pull stuff out and try and put it in our other carry-on bag.
Yeah, so basically we knew the rules. We made sure we were in the weight limit.
And because we're scavengers, we travel really light. Like our personal effects were one just
backpack
in a small backpack each that we could carry on. Because, you know, when you travel somewhere, I mean, they have laundromats and washers.
We
and
do our laundry.
You can buy food. So we only brought, 2 or 3 days worth of clothes that we just would keep washing. And plus we scavenged some clothes as well.
Jay found a pair of boots in the trash that were like brilliant and perfect.
And it was perfect, yeah.
We just polished them.
So, yeah, so that's what we do. And, and as far as customs go, I mean, it's just scavenged items. It was not a big deal. They just thought it was a bunch of junk. And
that worked for us.
It let us through, just a bunch of souvenirs. Kind of winding down here, this last podcast we had talked about auctions, and we talked about how we hate auctions and we think it's a terrible business. And we really struck a nerve, I think.
With a lot of people,
because there's a lot of people that I think still really love auctions, and they work for them. And we had a great conversation on the blog about, auctions work for certain kinds of auctions, collectibles, people have little rules that they do. And then someone recommended we talk to this guy, Tim.
Yeah, Mr. Customer Service. That's his username.
And so we actually recently talked to him and we interviewed him. So that's going to be the next podcast because he sells twice as much as we do in a year.
Yeah.
Kind of think we make about the same amount of money hearing his profit, its margins, because he's willing to pay more for items. So he makes sure that they sell. But everything's auction.
Everything's auction. Yeah. Every single thing.
So it's really interesting. We go through his whole process with him. And I love it because I might not agree with auctions, but I love that he has a schedule, a process. Yes. And he really seems to stick to it, and it works for him.
And he's been full-time doing eBay for 13 years, since like 2001. So, he has a lot of experience and he knows what works for him, you know?
And I guess that's the thing. I mean, hearing other people talk, I guess if you have a small store, if you're only willing to have a couple hundred items in at your store at any one time, I get auctions are the way to move items.
And if you don't want to have, like we have, lots and lots of storage...
People are
part
in
of it.
Small houses, they're in apartments, or they just do not want to deal with storing things. Yeah, that's the way to do it.
They move it out quick.
But, I think the thing about auctions, though, when people say, well, it's certain kind of things that sell in auctions, and that's really the valuable stuff. I mean, and to me, it's like, but the valuable stuff will sell on Buy It Now, too.
So exactly.
I guess it's really like where you believe the value is. People who really believe in auctions think that they get more because bidding wars start and they get more money than they could ever have dreamed of.
Right.
Whereas we who believe in Buy It Now, we think because we do the research, we know what the high price is, and I feel like we're consistently getting the high price. And we don't get those bad auctions where like people just buy at the at the opening bid. We bought a Bake-Like It's necklace for $1, and we sold it on auction for $1,200.
Right.
And then we tried it again.
Right. This certain necklace sold for only $50.
Right.
There's not much you can do about that. I thought this is going to get so high, and it didn't.
And just for some reason, and we felt helpless. I mean, we couldn't tell why one was better than the other. And the one that sold for $50, I know if we had put it on Buy It Now, we could have put a really, we could have
much
put
higher, yeah.
$800 on it with, its make offer and gotten a much better deal. So that's the thing with auctions is that, everyone loves to talk about those home runs. They talk about the thing where they put it up for 99 cents and it sells for $1,000. But
right, but that doesn't happen every week.
For every one of those stories, there's 500 items that don't sell for that much. Okay, guys.
So make sure you check out the next podcast, which is with Tim, Mr. Customer Service,
who sells only auctions, and he schools us on why auctions work for him.
So check it out.
See ya.
Bye.